Yeah, glad to be sitting here talking about getting some road wins for the first time this year. Never expected it would take us all the way to January to be able to have this conversation. But, proud of our guys. Obviously, playing on the road has not been easy for us. We've talked about many times kind of what was missing. And I thought our guys, addressing that and really stepping up to the challenge, having great energy for each other, and then just the magnitude of the game, playing in a rivalry game at ODU is really special, right? It's the kind of games and atmospheres that you want to be a part of. They had a great crowd. Found ourselves down early and, fought back and found a way to, really extend the lead and, make the adjustments and do a lot of really good things in that game to help us win. And then much of the same going down to Georgia State and, saw a lot of zone in that game, which we had kind of struggled with at points this year. And I think we kind of found our footing and guys got their confidence and really shared the ball and, kind of allowed our aggressiveness on the offensive side of the ball to be consistent against changing defenses against Georgia State. And so just proud of our guys for coming away with, the first road win and then being able to turn that into two of them, and then certainly gives you some excitement and momentum and confidence coming back home.
What do you think kind of was the common denominator for being able to take the last two on the road?
Filling in the missing pieces, right? We had talked about, the lack of energy for one another. And so I think that was noticeable. It was noticeably different in a positive way that our guys were, celebrating each other, giving each other great energy. And again, we talk about it all the time that, fans are going to cheer when the ball goes in, right? And they don't always understand when things are going well or not going well, when you're executing things or you're falling short of that. And we need constant energy throughout all those things, right? And so getting our guys to really understand and embrace, hey, we had a blown coverage here, so let's really get up off our feet and encourage our teammates to move on to that next play. And so we had a lot of things out of that ODU film session, and then we'll have the same today when we watch the Georgia State of, just next play mentality, guys making a mistake and then getting it back for their teammates. And that's what we've been kind of missing consistently on the road this year. And I thought those two factors were the biggest difference for our team.
Couldn't help but notice Bryce got a couple starts on the road. Kind of take us through what prompted that, and was there maybe a little bit of hesitancy when a guy that's been coming off the bench and playing so well kind of changing his routine, if you will?
Yeah, that's something that you always take into account, right? We've had players in the past throughout my years of coaching that they didn't feel comfortable starting, right? They felt more comfortable coming off the bench and, watching the game and seeing how it develops, and then they go in. And so there's a lot of different factors, right? You want to have a spark coming off the bench. And so we felt like, going into that ODU game, we just needed to change something up. I changed up some of my pregame routines on the road just to, give us a little bit better mojo or something. But, talked with Bryce and gave him the reasons why I felt like he needed to start. And they were all positives, right? It wasn't because we wanted to, just try to change our luck. It's things that he's done that he deserves and he's done a great job of. So I wanted to make sure that I highlighted those with him. Obviously, the confidence he plays with, but then he's also been really, quiet as kept. He's been very good on the defensive side of the ball, per our metrics and how we do things. And so he earned that, and we needed to change something up. And he felt good about it. He was confident with it. I think he had some jitters early on, but we gave him a huge defensive assignment in guarding Davis for ODU, their leading scorer. And once the game went on, I thought he did a really nice job once we got outside of that first 10 minutes.
I know, obviously, X and Mark, they want to win, but I also know they're very much about the team. Just how did it kind of go with them when you notified them of the decision that Bryce was going to get the nod?
They both had great responses. Hey, whatever's best for the team. That's what they had said from day one, and so that was consistent with their response once I, talked about the reasons each of them needed to come off the bench for those two respective games, and so they responded very well. Obviously, they both played well in those games, and the results were, what we had desired in making those changes, and so proud of those guys for having a positive team, centered response.
How much do you guys talk about the standings or pay attention to the standings? Just because now with these two wins, all of a sudden you're now only 2 games back of Arkansas State and having already beat them. Is that something you guys talk about as a unit, or is it just strictly kind of a one game at a time approach?
It's really a one day at a time, mentality. It truly is. I wish it were more exciting than that. We don't talk about the standings, right? You just can't look too far ahead, and I think that's important because if you're looking too far ahead and you start counting before you get a chance to get there and take care of business, then you're going to miss something along the way. And we just can't afford to do that. We've got to be very thorough. We've got to be detail-oriented. And so staying in the moment and worrying about today, worrying about this opponent certainly allows us to do that. And so we don't look too far ahead.
Throughout the year, A.J. Smith's kind of made his mark rebounding and defensive-wise, but ODU 21 points on that one, kind of being able to open up a little bit offensively. When he's starting to get into that kind of groove, what benefits does that bring to you with that starting lineup with his versatility?
Well, it's a huge help. A.J. went through the non-conference and did not shoot the ball like he's capable. A.J.'s a good shooter. And so he was not shooting the ball very well, and that kind of weighed on him and affected the other parts of his game. And so he really kind of sold out once we got into conference play. I think, most specifically the Southern Miss game, he answered the challenge against Denaje Harris, and he did a masterful job defensively, and then kind of lost himself in the game and had a better offensive game. And so since then, he's kind of sold out to that. And, that's the mark of a good team, that you've got, multiple guys who can beat you on different nights. And, the way that ODU particularly defended us that game, it wasn't like we called a whole bunch of plays to try to draw in the basket to get A.J. shots. It was just he was the recipient of our team playing the right way. They had a switching defense, and we were doing a great job of making the extra pass and the easy play. Found himself in the right spots and in the right frame of mind to make the plays when it came time for him to do that. But it's huge for us, right? It helps our spacing, certainly, and it allows everybody to be able to operate, whether it's those guards, on the perimeter and getting into gaps and driving the lane, or Elijah inside, when he can step out and make some shots, and then he puts a ton of pressure on you when he's rebounding the ball like he can.
I was just wanting to ask with the Georgia State game, 13-minute early start. I'm just kind of curious, right? You're Coach Greer. Have you been at a game where you find out, hey, we're starting 13 minutes early? Has that ever happened to you?
Yeah, my son's, AAU game. I think sometimes that'll happen, right? I think game ends early, and they say, hey, you guys want to start early? And all the parents say, let's do it. Let's get home early tonight. But never a Division I conference basketball game. That was a surprise to everyone. It was a surprise to our staff, the officials, a surprise to the other coaching staff. And so 3:47 tip time is unique. I don't think it was quite advertised like that, but I thought maybe there was a promotion to go along with it that we missed. But I had not seen that. So
I was curious when I turned it on at 4 o'clock. We're already in the first media break. So
right?
Yeah, that was quite the impact there. Coach, when you look at your metrics, what are the metrics telling you about your half-court game against your fast-paced game? And have you been deliberate in decision-making of when to run and when to pull back and go into this half-court? Seems like that may have been the trend here most recently.
It is. I think everybody would like to play fast, and I think, it just depends game to game on what kind of depth you're going to have. Some games are better for certain players on your team than others are for different reasons on both sides of the ball. And so you've got to be mindful of your pace of play. I think that we've shown flashes this year that when we have an advantage transition, we are absolutely electric, and we can do some phenomenal things. But as a staff, we've really, dove into those metrics and looked at, our points per possession as it relates to the time on the clock, right? And the numbers would tell you that from 20 seconds on the shot clock to 10 seconds on the shot clock, we were significantly more efficient. And so there were some games where we were getting in too fast pace of a game, and our offense in transition was more beneficial for our opponent than it was us. And so we still want to run, and I think we're doing a better job of being selective as to when we do that and helping our guys understand that, right? They're doing a better job of really listening and trusting when we say, whoa, whoa, whoa. You hear me yelling in my country voice, hey, 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 easy, stuff like that, to bring it out and, maybe let's get a little bit more organized transition attack, and that's been very good for us. And so it's kind of just, we kind of tell the guys sometimes they get mad about it. We say saving you from yourself, right? Because we want you to play fast. Like, we want to do that, but at times, it can really just make your mistakes multiply. decision making goes down, shot making goes down, defensive mistakes tend to mount, and so controlling that pace has just really been in our favor over the last 6 or 7 games, and I think we're figuring that out as a team. Our guys are really trusting that, and so the efficiency is certainly reflecting the adjustments we've made with that.
Seems like that's a way to slow down the game a little bit with a group that you were still working on connectivity.
Yes.
Has it helped in that regard because it may have simplified the pace of the game?
Absolutely. Yeah, it absolutely has. And I think it gives the guys just a little bit more confidence when we kind of slow it down and say, okay, this is how we're going to attack. This is where we're going to try to get the ball. And, and for our guys, too, we throw a lot of stuff at them, right? And it's a lot of new, whether it's playing against a team like ODU that, with one lineup, they're going to have a switching ball screen coverage. With a different lineup, they may go hedging. And that's a hard thing to decipher when you're locked in defensively and you're trying to get stops. All of a sudden you get that stop and you're trying to make that decision in a split second when you're sprinting in the first 10 seconds of a shot clock. So slowing it down, letting the guys kind of see it, putting them in a more strategic transition or late clock, sometimes even attack, allows them to be able to kind of process those things that we've prepared them for over the couple of days leading up to a game.
It's very easy to point at Mark or X or even AJ and his performance at Old Dominion with these big numbers, but the connective tissue oftentimes to a victory is the steady pace of some of those guys that fly under the radar. Eddie Ricks, speak of what he has done here in the month of January and how his development has improved since his transition from Moorhead to here.
We've talked about it as a staff, probably not talked about it enough publicly, so I appreciate you, Kurt, bringing that up. Eddie's been our most consistent player. He had a really rough game down at South Alabama. I teased him. He had 1 foot up a chimney, man. He was ready to go to Christmas and see his family, and he listened to that hard coaching, and he has been unbelievable since then. And just been consistent on the defensive end. He's taken on the challenge of guarding the other team's best player, no matter what position they are, because of the versatility that he has. He can guard anybody. He's rebounding. He's shooting the ball. He's doing everything. He looks like our type of guy, and his growth has been astronomical. And that's what we've been needing from him. All Eddie knows is come in, work every day, win 20-some games in a championship, and that's all he knows, right? And so we've been needing him to kind of bring that consistency. And he's not going to be a big-time vocal leader, and we're okay with that because everybody leads in their own way. But even as a sophomore, we needed him to kind of lead by example, and he's certainly been doing that. But his consistency has been something that we've been looking for from this team, and he's been someone that we can really point to since the calendar's turned.
Since you've been around him for so long, I'm just curious, how close do you think he really is to playing his best basketball?
Not close at all. I do believe this is going to be a big off season. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, with that. But Eddie's just kind of scratching the surface, right, as to what he can be as a player. I think he's shooting the ball better. I think getting him playing off the bounce a little bit more, some more decision making, and adding some more weight and strength is going to be an important key for him. But we've always believed Eddie is an all-conference level player, no doubt about it, whether that was back in the OVC or here in the Sun Belt, and we still believe that. And so he's still got a ways to go to reach that ceiling.
I don't know if you're putting more in the backcourt at all through the offense lately, but kind of that last game against Georgia State, do you think that's kind of exactly what you envision for those three, Bryce, Xavier, Mark, to kind of that kind of game is kind of what you envision in that backcourt or not?
Yeah, I mean, all those guys are dynamic, right? They can score it in a variety of ways. They can set the table for each other and the rest of their teammates, and so they're a lot to handle when they're out there playing and sharing and attacking and making easy plays. I think the Georgia State game, just their zone really kind of dictated how the game was going to be played early on with those guys. And so all three of those guards just did a masterful job of making simple plays for one another, moving without the ball, taking what the defense gave them, and playing to their strengths. And sometimes the zone allows you to do that. And I think we did a better job as a staff just kind of simplifying what we were running against the zone and kind of letting these guys make some plays. And that's not always our strong suit against man-to-man, but I think in zone we're kind of finding our footing and our stride with that, and it's evident in that game. And, if you're going to open the court up and allow, driving lanes for guys like that, and you're certainly going to, give them open threes, then they're going to be able to make you pay like they did the other night.
We've talked about how you have a few guys who kind of fit this description, but Noah Williams in particular has been a guy was a go-to guy at his previous stops, and now not getting as many minutes, but he'll take over a game for a couple minutes at a time, and then seem content to let it come to him. Just how has his adjustment been to this new role here? And seems like recently he's been playing particularly well in spots.
He has, yeah. Noah's been playing, well, and in spots is probably a good way to, to describe it. Some of that's, taking a year off is hard. Injuries, getting yourself in shape and being able to sustain long, periods of time that you can be out there on the court and maintain the level that he's playing. So that's got a lot to do with it. But he wants to win, right? You look at the stops that he was at. It wasn't like, winning was synonymous with where he had been, and so that's why he's here. He wants to win, and he also knows that his role's probably going to be less than what it was at those last couple of spots. And he's also not the same Noah Williams that he was 3-4 years ago that was, dropping 40 in Pac-12 games. But he's using his experience, he's using his intelligence and his wisdom, or as he would call it, to put himself and put our team in a better position. And he's certainly doing a great job with the minutes that he's getting right now and helping us win.
Well, for the Coastal game, what are you seeing from Rasheed Jones and Jordan Battle, that guard duo? Rasheed Jones, I believe, also checks in at 6'6", so that's a bit of a taller guard. How are you going to try and count? What are some of their strengths?
Yeah, I've not dove into a ton of them. I actually just read the scout before I came down here so that I wouldn't sound crazy. I've obviously watched some of them, and when I say that, I've been watching the other teams that we've played and kind of keeping an eye on Coastal, so I'm familiar with how they play. Bigger guards are a huge key in this conference, right? And I think we've done a good job, whether it was Davis for ODU, who's got great size and can shoot it and score it, and a number of different players like that. But guys like that, you've got to be on high alert, right? Because with our smaller guards, you cannot be out of position. You cannot be late with your closeouts. You got to be there on the catch. You got to pick your battles. Got to kind of guard them by committee and make sure you throw some different bodies at those guys. But he's a dynamic scorer, 3-level guy, and he can kind of set the table for everybody else. And so he's going to command a lot of our attention, and we got to do a great job on him by committee, not just with one person.